Today is Sunday, January 9th, 2022. My name is Lori Kurtz. My pronouns are she, hers. Would you please introduce yourself? Tell us your pronouns if you care to, and tell us all the things you do.
Absolutely. My name is Luz de la Concha. I use she, her, or ella pronoun, and I am a burlesque performer based in Portland, Oregon.
And what is burlesque?
I think to me, burlesque, I think I can only define it for myself. And I feel like it's an evolving art form, like so many art forms. But there is some roots in the word coming from burlar, which is to make fun of. And that's true in Spanish, I think also in the Italian root, to make jest, to sort of like a parody. So I think there are elements of that. I think at this moment, burlesque is, there's so much different space for burlesque. You could go to a burlesque show in one place, have a completely different experience as somewhere else. So I think for me, burlesque is a movement-based art form. So there's a component of movement, musicality, and sort of grandeur and glamour, however the artist defines that. So there's, to me, a thread you can see no matter the theme of a show would be that music, movement, and then exaggeration in sort of presentation. So that could look very high glam. It could look like a swamp monster, it's a big range. But that's sort of how I might define it now, and everyone would define it differently.
And how do you describe the kind of burlesque that you do?
Great question. I've thought about that before, and I think definitely because of some of my music choices, it's like neo burlesque and classic. So sort of between those two spaces. And I don't have a lot of pieces where I come out like as a modern day like character or a modern day, like a cartoon. Like I don't have a lot of pieces like that. So any of my pieces are usually really tied to the music. And then I do have a tribute piece as well. But I think I'm a blend between neo burlesque and classic.
Yeah. And why do you do burlesque? Of all the art forms, what does it give you artistically?
I continue to do burlesque because it brings something to life that I feel over my lifetime and over many lifetimes is shamed inside of the human body, is taught to be repressed and contained in terms of taking up the fullness of one's physical form. And I think for my own personal journey, which I know we'll talk about more, I've done a lot of different creative art forms. But there was something it just clicked for me with burlesque, where it was the ability to move and to shape everything about what's in front of you and how you present yourself. And it's continued, as long as something keeps me curious, I keep going back to it. So it's kept me curious and interested, and I haven't run out of that yet for this art form.
Some people think burlesque falls somewhere in the spectrum of sex work. Is it sex education? How do you feel about that?
I think my perspective has widened and expanded from when I first joined burlesque. And I think there's a lot, I almost think of it as like circles, if there was a bunch of circles that were all linked together, burlesque would be there, sex work is there. So there's overlap, I think, in a lot of those spheres. There are some folks that do sex work and also do burlesque. There are some folks that see them as one and the same, and there are some folks that would define them as very differently, but the way that I see it is they're just these spheres that overlap, and there's different components to it. I haven't spent time in clubs, for example, like in strip clubs, a lot of time in strip clubs, and I know that that particular like the work schedule is long. It's just very different containers, I guess, for movement and also economy and dollars that can come out of the different spaces. But I see them as very connected, and depending on the person, they may be completely, just very close, and they may be very distant. And for sex education, I think because we, as in the United States society, there's so little, there's so much shame around sex, and whatever little education you might get, it's often like wildly inaccurate, or so I do see it as being a way of like opening a portal to like what sexuality and sensuality can be, but it's like layered with any other kind of explorations you're doing on that topic. But
great. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
I have moved quite a bit, but I was born in Southern California, and then close to Los Angeles. And I spent some time there in the Los Angeles County area, and also in Southern Peru in South America. And I've also lived quite a bit of time, for a few years actually, in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, Los Angeles proper in the city, and Portland.
Yeah. And what took you to Peru?
My father's life. So my father is from South America, from Uruguay, and we moved for his work.
Yeah, yeah. And so then Oregon, what brought you here?
That could be its own story on its own, but I think sort of the wider version is that at the time I was living in Los Angeles, kind of like around the economic crisis, like 2008, around 2009, 2010, my partner and I were just looking for a different lifestyle than the running around that we were doing to make ends meet at the time. And so almost accidentally, like there was a little bit of purpose, but a part of it was really getting into a more natural space and having just a closer connection to nature, and getting away from a large city in the middle of just a really hard time financially. And so ended up here. Yeah, and it's been a little over 10 years now in this area.
That's great. And so back in your younger year, your formative years, whatever that means, what led you to creative expressions, dance or art or whatever?
I think that's just how I came into the world. It's always been really important to me. I always, when I was younger, like a child, I would always like dance, like do dances myself and make choreographed dances, and do the talent shows and lip singing and all that. But I didn't go to dance classes at the time. We didn't have a lot of extra money for classes. And so I would make it all up. So I got very comfortable with that DIY approach at a really young age. And then I ended up kind of shifting as a young person towards like writing and poetry, and then shifting like in my early 20s into songwriting and music performance, and then like shifting towards burlesque. So, and I still like tap into a lot of those art forms. But I definitely consider myself like a multidisciplinary artist and performer. And sometimes it's a lot of threads but they all kind of feed into each other.
And what, if any, formal education or training do you have? College degree or?
Yes. Would that be specific to art forms or?
Whatever you prefer. Yeah, either just in life or specific to art, if that's what you want to focus on.
I years and years ago did get a bachelor's degree in creative writing. So it was a very long time ago. So that's the formal education in terms of degrees. And I've done a lot of different kinds of certifications and trainings in my muggle, which is sort of everyday 9 to 5, how I make a living, not related to art forms. And I also have gotten into recently more somatic and embodied work and healing practices and how to be able to share those. So those are some of my interests. But yeah, formal degree would be creative writing.
Yeah, yeah. And then burlesque specific, in what year and how did you get started in burlesque?
In what year did I get started? So I want to make sure that I remember the dates correctly. I have a poster that will help me. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So I started in 2016 at the Rose City School of Burlesque, and really went very slowly into the community. I'm someone that takes their time. So I graduated, I think it was like March 2016, and then I originally was taking the class just to improve my stage presence. I never anticipated that I would become a burlesque performer and like go on to do some of the things I have, but I fell in love with it when I took my first class, and had someone early on, Ruby Rounds, sort of really encouraged me to check out the Burlesque Hall of Fame and BurlyCon and those things, so I could see like the whole range of what was out there and not and see beyond like what was in Portland. And they were really encouraging about that, so I was able to sort of see. But I took my time before performing. I kittened, which means being like a stagehand to help in supporting a show. So I did a lot of kittening or stagehand work for like maybe 9 months before I started performing, and to get to know people and see what I thought of the community and just check it out a little bit more.
And what, of all the dance classes or movement classes possible, what prompted you to take a burlesque class?
I think I don't remember what show it was, but I went to a show, and I can't remember how I got there. Like I don't remember if a friend invited, like I don't really remember how, but I got to a show, and at the show there was like mention that there were classes, and I was like, oh, that could be really fun. I should do that sometime. But really did not go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to be doing that. It was like, oh, that would be really good for me, because I had always performed. I was comfortable being on a stage, so I was performing music for many years and was on stages a lot. But as far as like owning my presence, that was harder for me. Like I had no problem being on stage and sharing my art, but I wasn't gonna like lock eyes with someone and really, and so I was like, oh, I think let me take this class. I think that it could be a fun way to like explore stage presence, and then I was like, oh, I really like this. And once I'm drawn to something, then it's, then I'm gonna pursue it. So
yeah. And at the Rose City School of Burlesque in 2016, who were the teachers, and what is a burlesque class like? What do you cover?
I don't know if I'll remember all of the teachers. The director was Zora Phoenix. The I remember Baby Lestrange taught facial expressions, and that was one of my favorite classes. So you kind of, like, as an example of what that might be like, is like you were paired up with someone and you were just making these extreme, absurd, and exaggerated expressions and back and forth. And it could be like smoldering, it could be anger, it could be, and just breaking up, sort of exploring what your eyes and your face could express. So that was one of the teachers. There was also classes on makeup. I think it was Megan Mayhem teaching makeup. I think that TL Ford was doing movement. I think they were a teacher then. I can't remember, but I did meet them then. But yeah, there was a range from like movement to makeup to sort of expression and stage presence. And
Yeah. And you also mentioned BHOF. What is that?
so the Burlesque Hall of Fame, I only have been once, and that was in, if I'm remembering right, it was in 2017 that I went. And that is typically annual, typically would be in person in Las Vegas. And it is there's a Burlesque Hall of Fame museum in Vegas. It's a big fundraiser event, and you have performers and fans and kind of burlesque adjacent community that comes from all over the world. So it's pretty, it's like a very rigorous schedule and very amazing. And every night there's, from what I remember, it was like every night there's like 4 hours of shows, 3-4 hours of shows on this beautiful stage with performers from all over the world. And there's classes, and that was when I first met some legends. So there's like legends who are, legends of burlesque. So they're performers who have been performing for decades, and many of them are now in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And so it's a really intensive, immersive experience, and it's a way to sort of see how broad the burlesque community is, and to really see a lot of different performance styles. And one of the nights is the Legends Night, and the legends that are there perform, and it's beautiful. And so yeah, that's the Burlesque Hall of Fame. There's, of course, there's the competitions and crownings, and someone will be crowned the royalty for that year, and it's a big deal that people work really hard to try to be featured and apply to perform.
Yeah. And you have a picture, I think, of one of the legends next to you. Who is this, and what's her significance in burlesque?
I do. So I have a few legends next to me, which I'll show you. But this is Marinka, and she is not with us on the earthly plane, but she passed away. I think it was last year now. I confused the 2 pandemic years, so it's kind of a blur. And she wrote, before passing away, she wrote her autobiography with the help of a writer, Lily Starr, who's a person that I don't know, but it's called From Havana to Burlesque. And she was a world-class international performer that was originally from Cuba and immigrated to New York, and went on to have this entertainment career that took her all over the world. And I had a chance to meet her in person. I think it was at a BurlyCon or the Burlesque Hall of Fame. I can't remember which. I'd have to look at my notes. And she was offering her class. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yes, you can say whatever you like.
So she was offering a class where she like taught you how to fuck a curtain, which was like her signature, like one of her signature moves. But really, she was talking about her life and how to be, and we all like practiced and moved. And so that was how I first met her. And we both speak Spanish, so we kind of stayed in touch and messaged a little bit here and there on Facebook. And then I got to, with the Oregon Burlesque Festival, she was a featured performer and very honored guest. And one of the producers, Holly Day, hosted a brunch in her home, and we were all with Marinka and able to like share stories, and just that was really like a beautiful experience that I'm so grateful for. But I guess she's one of the burlesque legends that has passed on now. And in her book, she shares, which was something that she wasn't open about publicly, but she shares that she is a trans woman, and she shares sort of the struggles of what that was like for her as a showgirl, as a show like world traveler, and how she had to just the struggles that she faced in Cuba, and also how she had to navigate in order to pursue her career and make the living that she was, how she had to navigate disclosure around that. But it's, if you have a chance to find the book, I'm sure you have it already, Lori, but for those out there, if you can find it, it's just beautifully written, and she was a very warm person, unapologetic person, and just a beautiful, beautiful woman. So I'm very grateful to have met her. But there are living legends as well, and I have like a picture. This is Gina Bonbon. Have a picture signed of Miss Tony Elling, and again, these are living legends that have, you know, been at some of these events like BurlyCon or Burlesque Hall of Fame, or at the International Latin and Hispanic Burlesque Festival. Camille 2000 was there, and so was Julie Mist. So they're really special people, and yeah, I miss Marika, and I'm just also really grateful to have met her and had conversation with her.
You mentioned you have a tribute act. What is that?
That tribute act, and I actually like have, this is a tribute to Conchita Cintron, and she is a bullfighter from she was born in like the 1930s. So she was Chilean, Peruvian, kind of grew up in Peru, but I think originally born in Chile. And I think she was mixed, like one of her parents might have been from Puerto Rico and one of her parents was white. So I think she was mixed. I may be confusing some of those details, but she definitely grew up in Peru. And she was drawn to bullfighting and ended up being like a woman bullfighter in a time when no one was doing that. And she also traveled the world, and there was some limitations to like how she was able to show up in the bullfighting ring as a woman in Spain. And anyhow, I tend to like dive deep when I'm working on a new act, and that's why I'm a little bit slower with creating new acts, because I get really into a song or a piece. And so my tribute act is really inspired by Conchita Cintron and what she stood for. I'm not like a big proponent of bullfighting. I'm a vegetarian, all of that, but like what this woman did and how this woman lived. And again, like she has this autobiography that is just amazing. And she's like, there's a line in there where it's like, you know, she's very decisive, and she's like, I left bullfighting the same way that I came to it. Like one day I just walked out of the ring the same way that she like decided one day, like I'm going to be a bullfighter, you know? And so for me, that was one of my first acts once I graduated, and I was hitting a lot of shows, and I was trying to think about what I want to put out there. And so I was like, I want to do this piece. I want to be both the bullfighter and the bull. And so I come out in like a costume where I'm like, you know, it's not an authentic bullfighter costume. Those are very expensive. I've pieced mine together little by little, but I kind of come out in this formal suit and tie, but I'm also the bull. And so it's a piece sort of where both of those sides come out. And yeah, so that's sort of my tribute piece that I do.
Yeah. And your stage name, how did you choose your stage name?
Well, I'm glad that we got the curse word thing out of the way, because I'm going to share. So that was one. And again, like as someone who loves words and poetry and like writing, like I just kind of brainstormed and wrote down a bunch of ideas. And so Luz de la Concha, that directly translates, like if you were to enter that into Google Translate, it would be light of the shell. So Concha means shell and luz means light. So the de la part is sort of I'm a mixed race person. I'm Uruguayan American, I'm Latina, and in South America, a lot of times like it's very gendered, and so de la shows like ownership of, in a way. So like if a cis man marries a cis woman, like sometimes it's less common now, but they would take that as their last name. So like de la, pertaining to, and then the man's name. So it's kind of a play. Where I'm from, where my family's from, specifically in Uruguay, Concha doesn't mean shell, it means pussy. So, but it's very regional. So it's really like in the southern cones, or el cono sur, like Uruguay and Argentina, where that meaning is known. Like in Spain, there's people named Concha the way like the name Maria is. Like it's very common. It's not a curse word at all. But there's just a lot of like cursing that happens in Uruguay and Argentina, and it's meant to be derogatory often. So it's like, andate a la concha de tu madre, like go back, or andate a la, you know, there's a lot of like foremother, or go back to the concha that birthed you, or, you know, there's a lot of like insults that way. And I wanted to flip that upside down. And I also liked that, you know, light, luz, light, and concha, shell, like those are also beautiful images, and they don't necessarily have to mean that other layer. And coming out of a shell, like there's just a lot of reasons. But I'll say the only time an audience ever got it, you know, like the full layers, was when I went and performed in Argentina. And my name was announced and I was there, and I kind of forgot because it never happens. And like the audience just started laughing, like because they got it, you know, and it's, so yeah, it's sort of a play on words and can mean different things. But for me, it was about like subverting, in a sense, like claiming and subverting this word that often gets thrown around in a derogatory way towards like women and femme people. So that was kind of how I came up with it.
And that's a very burlesque thing to do, to reclaim or subvert or turn things around and sort of use it for your own, and also make fun of that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Rose City School of Burlesque and other beginnings. How did you develop your performance career beyond those beginnings? You stage kittened for a while, and then
So then I met Ruby Rounds, who is not performing anymore, but was a performer and producer at the time. And she really encouraged me to apply to do tassel talk, which is, they're starting to do them now again, but they've been doing them virtually. Actually, Lacey Knightley has been doing them virtually, but it's where you go in front of your peers in like a regular room, no great lighting, no great stage necessarily, and you perform your piece, maybe an act that you're working on, and then you get constructive feedback. So Ruby had seen my tribute to Conchita Cintron and encouraged me to go to Tassel Talk, which I did, and then kind of took me under her wing a little bit and like worked with me on a few aspects of it and gave me some ways that I could, you know, maybe I didn't have the resources to do like a whole fancy costume change, but like ways that I could like elevate it. And then she did which is the poster behind me, the Colores Cabaret. And that was in March 2017. And the headliners were Egypt Black Nile and Lola Coquette. And it was like a powerhouse lineup that I was just so honored to be invited to. Miss Vila Rose, Jacqueline Hyde, a performer that now goes by Pasa Flora, who's part of the Vogue community. We used to go by Hydrangea. So it was just this amazing lineup of performers, and I was one of them, and it was all performers that identified as Latinx or Latino or Latin. And so that was like my first like big show. And so I felt really, and that was where I met also Perlita Picante, who was someone that right when I saw them, I just like felt this connection to, you know, and it was just a warm and welcoming and exciting space to be in with performers from all over, you know. So from there, that definitely like coming off of that show was a big high. And I decided, okay, well, this year I'm going to go to BurlyCon. I'm going to go to Burlesque Hall of Fame. Ruby encouraged me like to apply to some festivals. And so I applied to the Ohio Burlesque Festival. You know, I just kind of like set this in motion because I had the opportunity to be around folks from all over the country, and sort of wanted to see what else was out there.
Yeah, so the Ohio Burlesque Festival has been going for almost 10 years. Tell me about that and the significance and the founder, and just paint a picture of that festival.
So I met the founder, Bella Sin, and they were I think that I met them at BurlyCon. And at BurlyCon, something that's really special that they do is affinity group, sort of breakout groups. And so there's spaces that you can go if you identify as a person of color. There's spaces that you can go if you identify as queer. There's spaces you can go for Latinx identified. And, you know, there's overlap within all those communities. But I met Bella Sin there in one of those spaces, I believe. And we both speak Spanish, and we're talking, we're excited. And they're like just a pioneer in a lot of the work they do. They are an activist. They are an entrepreneur. They kind of do everything. They perform, they produce, they have a makeup line, like they do it all. And so I got connected to them, and I think I was really nervous to apply. And I think I applied like a few minutes before the midnight deadline. Like it just was like, oh, let me just throw my name in the hat, you know? Because I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know about it was like, I think it was either the first or the second time. I'd have to look at the dates that I was going to be like leaving Oregon for burlesque. And it was, you know, it's a big investment and it's a big commitment. And it's like something that I was like, can I do this? Like, anyways, I put my name in the hat and I got in and went. And again, it was just incredible. It was several nights in a row. It felt like you were like, it just feels like you're at this like next level magical space because there's people from all over. There's performers that you might not get to see otherwise, and there's just a lot of excitement, really packed audience, and you get your festival badge and kind of your bag of little goodies, and you're just like part of this special thing, just soaking, really immersive, very immersive experience. And so that was just a really special thing to be a part of, and a way to also see some different forms of burlesque that were happening.
And then you also went to the first annual International Latin and Hispanic Burlesque Festival in Florida. The first annual. How was that?
That was amazing. That was so that was in January 2018. I have the poster here, so I'm able to get clear on the date. And that was the producer was Lily Delacroix, and it again was something I like applied to and was nervous about, but I really was drawn after that first the Colores Cabaret experience of like kind of being in this like Latinx affinity space. I was really drawn to like seeing more of that, and I can talk more about that later. But I was really drawn to kind of seeing more of that space, and so I put my name in the hat. And originally, actually, it was going to be earlier. It had to be postponed because there was a giant, I think it was a hurricane. Like it was something that was happening where a lot of us, like days leading up to the festival, we were still all going, but it was emergency was declared in the state of Florida, and so Lily thankfully canceled it and was prioritizing safety, and we rescheduled it. So the January 2018 was the reschedule. And at that, so the burlesque legend was Julie Mist, and then Camille 2000 was also there. Bellison, Lola Coquette, and Bianca Daga were the headliners. And so I think, that was early 2018. So I think Ohio came after that. And that was, I got to spend more time with folks there. And again, it was just an incredible experience. And it feels so far away now being in the pandemic, and that like travel just feels very, I'm not traveling right now at all. So I feel really grateful to like have those experiences to reflect on.
And you're an international performer. You've already mentioned Argentina. How did that come about?
That again, like I met in BurlyCon, I met the producer, Yanni is their name, Yanni Giovanetti. And she is based out of Rosario, Argentina. Well, that's where the festival was based out of. And it was called Salvaje. It still is called Salvaje. And it's named after Rita La Salvaje. So Rita, R-I-T-A, Rita La Salvaje, who you can find a little bit of information about, but they were a performer in Rosario, in that town, and like a legend sort of in that town. So I met Yanni at BurlyCon, and again, like we were like speaking Spanish to each other and connecting and talking, and just stayed in touch. And she said, if you ever come this way, because my family lives in Uruguay, so like it's on the way, it's literally on the way. Like if you're ever out this way, let me know. It'd be great to connect. And so I kind of saw that the festival was happening, this first ever burlesque festival, and she runs Academy of Burlesque in Argentina, like the only one there. And unless there's more by now, but at the time it was the only one. And it just worked out. Like I planned a visit to see family, and I stopped there first and went to the festival, and then went onwards to see family. So it was, a really special experience. It was the first festival that they were having in Argentina, and I don't know the name of the historic building, but it was this gorgeous building, like with like marble, like steps, like giant epic steps, and like going up to this beautiful stage. And it was just so elegant. And there were performers from different parts of the world as well. It was a smaller like group of performers, but again, it was like several nights, and each night was different. There was different locations, and just really special. And to me, it was just special to be, because I did live in South America in my early 20s when my father was around, and I found it very repressive in terms of like being a young woman, a young like kind of like punk DIY aesthetic, like it just. And so for me, like being a little bit older and being able to go back and see like the liberation and the freedom and the expression that was happening. Even on the streets, like there was like a lot of graffiti and stuff, like very like feminist oriented graffiti. There's it was just like a really like powerful experience for me to have, because I had had a lot of experiences that were really different than that.
Yeah. And so that's October of 2018. And then about 6 or 7 months later, May of 2019, Panama City, Panama.
Yes. So that's the last festival I've done. Because we all know, 2019 creeps up to 2020. Yeah. So the Panama Burlesque Festival, again, I sort of was like, I'm just going to throw my name in the hat. Like, we'll see what happens. And that was just like a really, there was 3 producers that put that together. So, Amber Lust, Mina Montenegro, who they changed their name. It's now Mina Montenegro, if I'm remembering their new name. And they created the space where they brought folks from like all over. So they really did a lot of, I think maybe like bridge building, where they really tried to like actively get different performers to come. Like Frankie Fictitious was there, Foxy Tan was there. So just like these amazing performers were all in this space. And they sort of built on their relationships in the United States and invited people to come. And it was a lot of fun. It was, kind of a whirlwind. And I was traveling by myself, and kind of went on to travel a little bit by myself. And just had a really amazing experience.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned you mentioned the pandemic, so we'll talk about that. But before the pandemic, what was the burlesque community like in Portland?
I guess I can speak to sort of my experience of it. I tend to be like a quieter person backstage. So I'm very like, when I'm in show mode, I'm like very observant. And so for me, some of like the deeper connections I've made have been like at a slower pace, a little bit like smaller one-on-one connections. And I'm not someone that was like out with big groups of people like after shows and things like that. So I'm more about like the one-on-one. So my experience of it was really about kind of like support, about being backstage, about like sharing something that we're all passionate about. And I love the backstage space. Like, it's just, even though there's nerves, there's like makeup, there's tape, there's like beautiful, you see like all the behind the scenes of the costumes, and it's just a really special space. And so for me, the community was kind of around that. And it's also like an industry and a business, and at different levels, right? There are definitely some folks that are working really hard and are making a living and are performing multiple shows a week. And so it's like their job and they're showing up um, and getting to work. And then there's folks like me that I have a different thing that I do completely different for my 9 to 5. And so coming in, I'm like, it's not as frequent of an experience for me. And I'm really like paying attention to the sensory and the experience and the audience. And but yeah, I think it depends sort of who the producer was, like what that might feel like, and what the audience might be.
Yeah.
But my experience was in person before the pandemic was pretty like positive, like mostly welcoming. I think like any space I've been in, lots of different creative communities, there's like that thing that you all share together, and then you may never like get beyond that particular connection. That just may be like the space that you see each other. And then there's out of that, sometimes you can develop a really deep connection with someone. So I've seen that in other creative communities, and burlesque is similar, and there's some groups that are kind of several people all connect, and then there's some folks like me that are kind of more individual.
Right. Yeah. You've already described a lot of the business skills. Even if you're just planning a trip for yourself, it's really an event planning, music editing, costume making. Just paint a picture of all the skills that it takes to do a burlesque performance and then take it on the road.
I think that was something, especially for traveling internationally, that I was a little nervous about, like in terms of like getting your costume down to a manageable size. Like I made sure to pack, like if you're going international, like there's different regulations for like suitcases and luggage, and you don't want to lose your costume. So like when I went international, and I did the same nationally, like I would try and get all the costume pieces to fit in my carry-on. And so that if everything else got lost, I would have these irreplaceable pieces. I'm not someone that has a lot of like craft and sewing skills, even though I do have, like in my generational history, there are like seamstresses, and you would hope that maybe I had picked that up, but I haven't. And so I have supported by like buying pieces from people that do make costumes. So, this is from Velvet Zephyr. Everyone's got to have a Velvet Zephyr robe. This boa is from Charlie Sharp. It's like 8 feet long. This panel skirt is from Holly Day. These gloves are from Burlux, from Delilah, based out of New York. And I don't buy a lot of costume pieces because they're an investment. And early on, when I worked briefly with Jacqueline Hyde in her Alchemist of Teas program, she really is like very business minded, and it's like, if you're gonna invest in this piece, like write down how much you've spent and like make sure it cancels out in your performances, And I try to bring that mindset. So I'm not performing multiple times a week. When there wasn't a pandemic, it was at the most frequent, maybe once a month for me. And so I was able to kind of mix and match with the pieces that I had, or I've tried to also get pieces that are versatile, that I can kind of play and put together with other components. Music editing, that's something that I've done. I don't tend to do a ton of complex editing. It'll usually be like a song fading into one more. And the promotion piece, which can be challenging because it can feel a little bit insular online, where you're just like promoting to friends that are already like, you're all promoting to each other, but you're all promoting, so that can be challenging, but it's got to be done. And yeah, so I think when you're juggling it all, um, it requires organizing your time and like scheduling out like really when you're gonna like, I know some folks like practice choreo, some, for me, it's like I do schedule time, like I'm gonna dance, an hour these certain days. I'm gonna make sure I dance at least an hour. If I have a big show coming up, I wanna like really feel into the music. So it requires, yeah, scheduling your time. If you don't have the sewing skills, then like making sure you, kind of do the research and find someone that not only that can do beautiful work, but that you feel good about investing, your dollars in, because it's kind of like supporting the community. Um, and yeah, rhinestoning is something that I learned that I do enjoy. Like I didn't think I would enjoy, but actually it's very meditative to like place rhinestones onto a costume piece. Um, yeah, and then I think it's a different layer when you're traveling, and just sort of like for me, you have to think about like your safety plan and like how you're getting to and from places, and if you're traveling by yourself, like how you'll let folks know like that you got home safe, or that kind of thing. I think is important when you're in a new place, and um, you've got a bunch of makeup on and a bunch of lashes, and you don't know what street you're on. Like it's good to sort of have those plans in place too.
Right. Yes. And so then COVID pandemic hit, and how did that affect the Portland burlesque scene and your creativity?
I think as far as the scene, like, and we're still in it. Like we're seeing, I think a lot of folks are very like confused right now about exactly how we can manage this. Um, but ultimately, like, there came a time where like indoor shows just couldn't happen. um, and it went on so long that a lot of venues closed, changed, went out of business. Um, and people started producing online shows, and um, locally, like the producers that I've watched doing those online shows, Lacey Knightley was doing them regularly and consistently, and the Melange virtual shows still going strong with Dahlia Cash. And so some folks like kept sort of a steady schedule, and then there was sort of one-off productions or a festival kind of experience that happened online. Pearl Noir did a beautiful online virtual festival. So a lot of people locally in Portland, like Lola Coquette really took off as a producer, and BB Sanchez and Riri St. Cyr. So yeah, I think people stepped into the space, got really comfortable with Zoom or Crowdcast, and pieced together a new world for burlesque. And I think what was really beautiful about that, and for me, I didn't perform online. I haven't yet. I went to different shows. So I did try to show my support that way by going to shows. And I think it was really just powerful to see like how community can come together. And some people were building alliances like across geographic distances that might not have been happening otherwise. So it was, and we're still seeing that like in some ways. And with the pandemic and the fight for racial justice and like everything that was happening here in Portland and across the nation, I think some people just really like rose up and found each other, and built those alliances and kind of made very purposeful shows. Or the What the Funk Festival. I mean, just some amazing productions that have happened. And I think it's challenging because it does seem like we're on a roller coaster now with the pandemic. So I think it's very hard for people to plan right now. And it can be very, can be a risk and an investment to secure a location and secure performers to travel and all of that. So I think there's a lot of, everyone's managing it the best they can.
So we are in January of 2022, just currently, or in the last couple of months you've performed. And what have been the COVID considerations backstage or at the venues? What's that been like?
It's been pretty good. So I went to, in the summer, I went to a performance, and then kind of in the fall, and both of them were Lacey Knightley shows. They were, the particular venue was a rooftop venue. So there was kind of that comfort in knowing that there was open air. We were required as performers to provide our proof of vaccination to the producer beforehand. And we were asked to, if we weren't doing makeup, to keep our masks on backstage, which, that can get a little challenging because you're taking off. After a while, your mask will just kind of like turn the lipstick into like a spread if you're wearing lipstick. But yeah, so I felt, again, the circumstances of the pandemic and the risk have changed in such a volatile way. But I think producers have really, from what I've seen, like taken care to have a procedure, procedures in place that are stated and written down, and that you kind of agree that you're going to inform people if you reschedule. One policy that I thought was really amazing that I saw Lacey do is, no questions asked. If you're not feeling well, like, you get rescheduled, we'll pay you for your performance and we'll rebook you for another time, So that kind of thing is pretty amazing to see. And I know that's not feasible for all productions, but yeah, I think everyone is in this region, like, very considerate of each other and wants to keep each other healthy.
Yeah.
Also, like, everyone, again, like, it's really hard because there are some performers that, like, are making their living this way. And so when they have to step away for 10 days and multiple shows, that's a huge economic loss. So it's a very challenging situation.
You mentioned social justice and the burlesque community. Oregon is a fairly white demographic, and how would you like to see, or how does the community work to achieve diversity in the shows that you're in? Is there outreach to underrepresented communities? What are you seeing, or what would you like to see?
I think there are some amazing producers, and, like, I named Melange, and Dahlia Cash, and who that they are. In Dahlia Cash, they are a Black femme producer, and they are front and center lifting up performers so that the majority of the show is Black and brown folks. The whole show is Black and brown folks, so there are some producers here in the Pacific Northwest that is the starting place, right? And then there are, I think other producers do, like, work actively and reach out. I've seen that with Lacey Knightley, at least, like, reaching out to performers who maybe, if they're not even locally based in Portland, they're nearby, and just really trying to, like, invite more of a range of diversity. And that could be, diversity in body size, diversity in a multiple range of identities, like queer identified folks, which there's a lot of us in the burlesque community. And not just, like, so the umbrella, right, for performers of color, like, you can see myself, I'm a mixed race performer of color. I'm Latina, and I also have very light skin, and so that puts me in a place of privilege. And it's not enough to like have someone like me be on a stage. I'm also what's called like straight sized, right? Like I'm a thin bodied person, and so I do think that performers, producers are working to kind of see that it's not just like about like it's a necessity, and it makes the shows so much more beautiful and so much more like what we all want to see, like what our audience like wants to see. And I do think there's a lot more representation, and I think you know, the idea of like nothing about us without us, right? So like I just love to see when there's productions that are like led by the community that is often like left out, right? And I think that's what Pearl Noir has tried to show folks as well, is like if you aren't seeing it happen, like you don't need to wait for the invitation, like make it, right? And I love like seeing that, and I love supporting that as well. So when I can buy a ticket to a show that is just so intentional and created by the community for the community, it's a really beautiful and exciting thing.
Yeah. You kind of joked a little bit, but it's true about a lot of queer representation in burlesque. Why do you think that is?
I feel, I'm sure like a historian would know the answer better, but I know this is my interview. I think that can be true in a lot of art forms. But as someone who, you know, like I move across a lot of different art forms. So from like experimental music to writing, and like across different genres. And there's something about like movement and like being in the body that is so, it just gives me chills even thinking about in a world where broadly, and I would say globally, this is true in Latin America. And I'll say this as an example: in Argentina, I performed with, you know, different performers, and there were some cis gay men that were performing in drag, and before they left the club, they were wiping off every last bit of makeup because they said it's not safe for me to get home, right? And you know, as a woman identified and femme presenting person, I'm always thinking about my safety out in the world, right? And so it was very like, you know, hit me in this way to be in Argentina and just like casually be reminded that this cis man as well is like also in fear for his life because of patriarchy and and what that stands for. So I think there's something about the movement arts that I think can, if you find them and it works for you as an expression, because you know that can happen in a multiple array of art forms. There's so many incredible queer performers and writers in different genres, but there's something about like finding that power in your own body. And like once you do burlesque long enough, it's like you celebrate yourself. Yes, like you're going out there to also be celebrated and like you know, create a message and communicate with the audience, but like you kind of have to like find that thread with yourself and build that strength in order to get out there in the first place. So there's the embodied somatic component of doing burlesque is, I find, very healing, and I would guess like maybe that's why there's so many queer bodies in the space.
People in burlesque say it empowers them. I think that's kind of what you were talking about. What do you have thoughts on the empowering piece of this?
I think you can kind of get lost and find yourself a few times in it. And for me, yes, absolutely, like night and day from when I first started doing burlesque to like across like multiple facets of my life, like the way that I've shown up differently, the way that I've, um, not just in burlesque, right? But like to be so audacious to be like, I'm going to go perform. I'm going to fly to this random town in Argentina and I'm going to perform and I'm going to like, that allows you to like be audacious in other areas of your life. And so for me, it's been incredibly empowering. And I've also had the opportunity to sort of be studying in a physical way burlesque and also be working in other healing forms for myself. So, there's a lot of not just one thing for me, it's multiple things, multiple streams flowing into the river. But absolutely, it has helped me to come home to myself, to rediscover my very young like love for dance, and to know that it's okay that I wasn't like professionally trained since I was little. Like I still love music and love movement. Just the other night, I was watching a recording of from this past year's BurlyCon. It was a burly pod of Willie Barrett, teaching his 3 pillars and reminding us that we are our own planet and we encompass all the beauty, and we, whether we're moving our entire body or just like the tip of our fingers, like that there's the planet and the beauty is all there. So for me, it's absolutely been empowering.
Yeah. And of course, finding your own space and power is, changes your life. But how about burlesque as a force for social change?
I think the arts are always like ahead of, the times, and burlesque performers, like we are people just like everyone else, but like to be able to continue to pursue an art form under the societal conditions that we're in right now, I think that's where allyship and solidarity, and not just performative allyship, but like how do we as a community acknowledge what our own identities are, our own intersections, and if we aren't, how do we like invest in lifting up our community, because we're a reflection of like our greater society, right? Like, and so I think that's where some of the powerful producers that we have that are Black and brown producers, and also like lifting up spaces that are specifically like affinity spaces, right? And I think that's where you can see transformation and change happening. I think it's still, I know it's not mainstream. I know burlesque is not mainstream. It feels like it sometimes to me, but I know it's not. But there's definitely like a lot of work to be done, like in the community and the industry, right? Like there are still certain expectations of like what is beauty that is based on like, white European ideals and size standards and all of these things that people are breaking by like just creating a space that just isn't that as a foundation, that is everything, that isn't even centered in any way on that. And I think that's been really powerful to see in the times that we're in. And again, like knowing that people right now everyone's experiencing something different. We don't know what everyone's going through, but what we do know, like we know who is being the most marginalized, and it's who's being the most marginalized for all of time, and how do we invest and how do we show up? And sometimes that's, not like putting your name in a hat, right? Like sometimes it's stepping back. And sometimes it's, like finding what other resources you might have to like support something if you don't have the bandwidth to participate, or it doesn't just have to be about money, but like if you have it, like give your money to those places that are doing the work. Yeah, so I think it's a spectrum of change and transformation like we see in our society, and there will always be work to do.
Yeah. So, final question. What do you wish the general public would understand or know about burlesque?
Who knows what year this will be watched in. So I don't know what kind of reality you, the general public, are in right now. But if the reality that you're in includes the opportunity to see a burlesque show, like go check it out. I think like go see and have that experience for yourself. And know that ultimately, like, you might see like a different theme, a different, it's a celebration of being alive, and it's ultimately like a celebration of bodies, of movement, of freedom, of liberation, and that there's nothing shameful about that. And yeah, I think it would be that really like go and learn and see what you think, because it's a really magical experience. It can be. And then I think the other thing would be like just recognizing like that these more like liminal art forms, like folks are left out sometimes, right? And folks there's a reason people use different names aside from it being fun. It's like, so how can we collectively, if you're not doing burlesque, like interrupt some of those harmful shaming attitudes and marginalizing comments that end up like putting our bodies at risk, right? And so I think it's like, even if burlesque is not your thing, just honoring that like we all want to live on a planet where like all human life is like given space and dignity to like move as it desires. So even if you don't want to come to a show, like, that is something that you can do, is help lift that up, and in your spheres of influence, like interrupt, some of those damaging comments and ideas. But yeah, other than that, like go to a show and have a beautiful time.
Great. Luce, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.